Welcome to the Meditation Podcast. You can find all our episodes on meditationpodcast.org. We're also on YouTube. You'll find the links in the podcast description. I'm also a podcasting coach because I got 4 other podcasts. You'll find everything about me, bio.link/podcaster. Today, my guest, the Soul Archaeologist, is a spiritual messenger, author, and healer, and the founder of Resonance Experiment. Please welcome Ken Stone.
Wonderful to be with you, Roy. Thanks for having me.
Well, delighted to have you. So you might let people know, bar what I've just said, who's Ken?
Well, who I am, I suppose this is true of everyone, right? We're all these multidimensional things, that expressions of divinity, and we wander around and eventually find our way home and to our true calling and so on. And without going too deep into it, I would just say that I lived a very conventional, almost boring life up until about 2007. And I was actually in financial services. I was a mortgage lender. And I learned to meditate in August of 2007 for the first time in my life. And my mortgage assistant started calling me Zen Ken, because the difference between the type A control freak, and I would have given anyone in the world a run for their money on a contest to who's the most type A before. And then after I learned to meditate, it was like I was a different person. And then a month later, I went to an in-residence meditation retreat. And there, a fellow participant on the last day, as we were closing the event, being led through another meditation, he wrote on a piece of paper, "You should be working as a healer." And I didn't even know what the word healer meant. So, and still I started crying uncontrollably. It just impacted me on a level I couldn't rationally understand. So that was the beginning, I guess, of, or at least a conscious beginning. Let's say I was consciously aware at that point of a deeper purpose in this life. And what's unfolded since then has been a fascinating journey of deeper surrender and deeper exploration of the unknown, and stepping in all along the way. So, spiritual messenger to me is a one way of referring to any human being. I think we're all spiritual messengers. That, to me, a messenger is someone who is consciously aware of the manner in which divinity or divine presence is expressing while interacting with others or the natural world. And so in my case, I think one of the things that expression, or one of the aspects of that expression when I'm interacting with others, is that there's an enlivening, a deeper experience of divine presence within the individual or the group with whom I'm sitting or working with or teaching or talking to or whatever. And and to me, healing is just a byproduct. It's not really the point, although that was the word that the gentleman used to describe me. I think in the exploration in the years between, I've started to realize, or maybe started to realize a long time ago, but see evidence of this over and over again, that as we come to a deeper experience of divine presence, by whatever name, I mean, I think, people have so many different perspectives on what that is. And from my standpoint, it's not about a particular name, or a structure or anything like that. It can be, some people have strong connection to religious tradition or spiritual beliefs, and that's wonderful. But when we come to a deeper experience of whatever that is, of the divine mystery within us, and open to that, embody it, integrate it at a deeper level, then things like healing, which could be very important if somebody isn't feeling well or there's a challenge in life or whatever, just naturally happen spontaneously the more we come to a deeper encounter with that ineffable presence. within each of us.
Yeah. And I bounce back on that because that's very important, because there's a few cases I've heard about that. But what I want to touch on is this beautiful paint. For those listening on the audio, you need to go into the video. There's some 4 beautiful paintings behind me. So you might tell me what they are. What are they connected? They're actually lovely.
Yeah, thank you. My sweetheart Amy did these for me, and they're actually part of. I guess there are 6 of them. I'm going to be hard pressed. I'd have to stand up to get the camera to refocus above, but yeah, they were pours. She did paint and then put silicone in it and just poured the paint over, and the paint just spontaneously did whatever the paint did. And so, yeah, she did these for me some years ago, and I don't know. At some point, I thought I'm going to put these in the background because I think they're really beautiful, and they offer sort of like an exploration of the divine mystery. You know, we discover new things whenever we encounter them. And I've had people, like, if I'm teaching live on YouTube, people will be, I see an angel in the background and I see this and that, you know. So I think it's interesting how we sort of receive what we're meant to receive in all sorts of different ways. And art is such a beautiful expression of that. And she is quite the artist. So it's
they're
it's
really
wonderful to
positive,
have you
beautiful.
acknowledge them. Yeah, thank you.
So with the healing, because I mean, there's been cases that we hear somebody, they kind of get, you know, they say, oh, you've got X amount of months to live or whatever. And then they go, it's gone. Say it's cancer. It's gone.
Right.
Because they've kind of looked within, and there's no explanation. There's no scientific explanation, which basically shows the power that we have got ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are lots of different perspectives on what you're describing. And from my perspective, you know, as powerful as the mind is, there's an even more profound presence that upon which the mind rests or sits, or it offers context to the mind. And that is, I think of it as divine presence, but if you just want to think of it as presence, that's fine. You know, whatever we refer to it. And in presence, we are whole. We are already whole. We're already fully integrated. We're already fully enlightened, or whatever you want to say, you know, whatever language you want to use on that. And so sometimes illness like that can be a really powerful awakener for people spiritually. And early on in my work as a healer, as a spiritual messenger, I worked with a lot of people with cancer. And it wasn't because I was holding an intention, I'm going to work with people with cancer. It's just what showed up. You know, it's people with cancer were sort of a dominant part of my practice for a number of years. And one of the questions I asked them is, what do you think is the lesson of this cancer? And every single one of them said, for me to come back into my body, which I think is just an extraordinary insight. And whether or not it applies to everyone with cancer, I don't know. But it was true of those people that I was working with. And to me, that is the pathway to that encounter. You know, the most profound spiritual experiences that are available to us are in the body, in my view. And so when, I guess in my language, it's when the soul or the unique expression of divine presence as you, when that energy descends down from the place where it tends to be in most of us as human beings, is in our heads or maybe a little bit in our hearts. But when it drops down into the hips, you know, this amazing experience begins to unfold, and we actually can begin to experience ourselves as we really are, which is kind of a loaded reference these days, you know, because lots of people have different ideas of who are we really and what does that mean. What I mean by it is an undistorted expression and extension of the divine as a human being. And so, yeah, what you end up with in some cases is this spontaneous healing that has absolutely no foundation, no rational foundation for it whatsoever. And it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary to witness, to perceive it in people, or to hear somebody reflect on that in their own life. Sometimes it's so extraordinary, people wonder, is that even real? Is that possible? And it is. It's absolutely possible.
And when you're kind of dealing with people, is it more you're using your own energy field as such, or do you use kind of like the hands to help with people?
It's actually neither, and it's interesting that you're asking about that. It's um I'll put it to language this way, and let's see if it makes sense. I become aware of the aspect of me that is expressing as the individual or the group that I'm working with. And I often do group session work that is virtual, and then it's recorded, and I have no idea who the people are that will eventually listen to it rationally. But when I open to that group, I have an experience of everyone who will ever be part of the group. And so I actually don't send anything. I don't utilize my hands. I don't even use intention at all in anything. I don't actually think I'm doing it, if that makes sense. I don't even think I'm doing anything. It's like I get to see, witness, experience individuals and groups the way God experiences them, which is a really kind of bold claim that I hear coming out of my mouth. And I don't mean it as a bold claim. I just mean it's so extraordinary. I don't even know how to put it into words, my experience of it. I mean, I could tell you about my hands buzzing and tingling and so on, but it's like I am perceiving either the collective group or the individual if I'm working with just one person. And what is showing up on that screen, if you will, is so different with each person. But one thing that's the same is there is a brilliant presence there, and it's totally undistorted, no matter what their experience in life is. And if we sit together long enough, they start having that experience of themselves. And it's not because I'm sitting there pulling strings or zapping them or doing anything. It just is. And I can tell when it's happening because my feet will start buzzing when they're coming into an energetic alignment, and my hands will start buzzing when their body is coming into a physical alignment. And that alignment will translate as a reduction or a complete lack of pain if somebody's in discomfort, and all sorts of other things of which I have no rational awareness of. I mean, I'll be asking someone, what's happening for you? Or somebody I've worked with will say, I went to the chiropractor I've been with for, the last 20 years. And they were like, what have you done? Your spine is straighter than it's ever been. Or someone pulled blood and, the blood work was completely different. And they'll say to me, what did you do? And I'll say, I didn't do anything. I mean, I'm just, this is just how God expresses through me. And I have no specific awareness of what those things are or how they happen. They just do. They just happen. And it's weird. It's wonderful. It's extraordinary, but it's also kind of bizarre.
Yeah. And just for those that might be listening, kind of going, like, because like I've done a bit of research and like because I wasn't on the call, but we do live calls, and then Bruce Lipton was on it, and I know a lot of people would be familiar. You've got a nice testimonial from him, but there was also students of the, I don't know how you pronounce it, it's some Mahesh Yogi.
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that fully because I was struggling with it. It was the deepest spiritual experience of their life, so.
Yeah. I mean, when that happened again early on, I sort of was randomly brought to, or people were brought to me or whatever. I mean, when I say random, it just appeared with no cause. All of a sudden, there are all these advanced students of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who's the founder of Transcendental Meditation and, a guru in the Hindu tradition and so on. And an incredible presence. I mean, an extraordinary. I mean, some of these people were in flying rooms with him, where they would meditate and they put mattresses on the walls because they would levitate and fly into the wall. So, I mean, people who were there with him doing that, obviously when he was alive and in the body, I'm working with them somehow. Someone says, hey, there's this weirdo or this is healer or whatever, and then at the end of the session, like every single one of them, I didn't prompt them. They just would say that was the deepest spiritual experience of my life. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, see, early on, I really struggled with it. I thought this isn't real. What is this? I mean, am I a fraud? Am I a freak? What is this? And so, I mean, people would say to me in session, I don't know if I believe in what you do. And I'd say, I don't know if I believe in it either. I mean, I'm just,
But
and
I
so,
like that authenticity, by saying that, because there's sometimes people go, yeah, I've got this gift, but you're saying it as it is. And I think people then kind of go, because of the gift, they actually experience it.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate you saying that. I guess for me, this has been a journey of a deeper exposure or a deeper exploration of my authenticity, of my vulnerability. I mean, when I started, I was, and I let me say this differently. I then struggled with this and I still struggle with this. My separate self would show up, my separate self wants to project, wants to talk about, this is perfection and here's how perfect I am and blah, blah, blah. And I mean, anytime I hear any of that stuff coming up, I'm like, no, I'm not perfect. I'm a human being just like everyone else. We're all capable of extraordinary things. We don't begin to know what they are. We don't need to believe in them. That's the other thing. It's like, I mean, gravity might be a bad example of this, but you don't have to believe in gravity. It's just there, and as to whether or not gravity has an impact on you, I mean, yeah, maybe there's a conversation about that, but it's the same thing with divine presence. It's the same thing with this opening to a deeper experience of our inner wholeness. And I mean, I found that I feel much more aligned when I'm being real about my experience, about who I am, and not trying to project all of this malarkey. Because I mean, although that stuff resonates with some people are really looking for the perfect person who has all the answers and all of this. It doesn't resonate with me. I don't think that's, I think there's just far too much richness and beauty and really a deep gift in the messes of our lives. And if we can be real about that and communicate about that, we have permission and we can open to something that is not contained within the cosmology or the structure of, our beliefs and so on. And I don't mean it has to be belief destroying. I just mean, well, let me put it this way. There was a period of my life when I was young, when I wondered, is there a God? And then I had an experience and it was clear there's a God. And then for the next 20 plus years, I wondered, how can I have an experience of God in my body? That's what I want. And the first time I had that experience was when I first shared this gift with someone else. And I could feel God in my body. And that's what happens when I sit with people. That's what's enlivened for other people. But it's not the God I thought I knew. It's not what I thought I understood about spirituality. It's very different in some ways. And it is a constant exploration of an unknown. And the unknown is an invitation to vulnerability and authenticity, not a projection of perfection. So anyway.
And I've seen where you were doing a speak, it was in a group setting, but I can see flow going through you. It's not a scripted thing. Whereas I see a lot of, especially in the space, there's a lot of people and how to, but when somebody is in flow and they're just being natural and it's going through them, and you can see, that's how people connect with it because they know it.
Yeah. I mean, right. It's you can't, it's almost like we could go look at the Tao Te Ching and have our insights here, right? It's, if you could speak of it, it's not the thing, and da 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 da, right? But when we're in that flow, as you say, something other happens. And if we give ourselves to it, it's beautiful. It's profound. It just, yeah, this is not the life I thought I would be living. But as I give myself to the flow more and more all the time, it's so much more fulfilling and meaningful than anything I ever thought I would be doing or being or whatever. Parts of life, I thought if it looks this way, then that's going to mean I'm satisfied or fulfilled or happy or whatever. None of that's, and I think a huge part of that is about just opening up to that expression and letting it rip, letting it go.
Definitely. So like you mentioned in 2007, you started meditating. Like, do you still meditate? Do you have a system? And like, what type of meditation at that stage did you do?
Well, I learned to meditate from the class I went to is an Art of Living Part 1 class. The Art of Living Foundation, I think, has a pretty substantial presence around the world. But the reason I went to it is because there was an article in the newspaper that said world peace through inner peace. And I thought, I have to be there. And, whatever the person who spoke said, it resonated deeply with me. And I went up to him afterwards and asked him a question. I have no idea what I asked him. And I'm a very large person. I'm 6'5", and I look like a retired American football player, not football for the rest of the world, which in America we think is soccer. But anyway, I look like an American football, not a soccer player. Retired soccer players tend to look pretty fit and so on. I'm a big guy. And so I not only am a big guy, I was towering over him. He's much shorter than me and a very slight person. And he just looked up at me and gave me the best man hug of my life. And I'm a hugger. And he looked right into my eyes and he said, "Ken, come learn to meditate with us." And I don't even know what, if there's a tradition there. I mean, Sri Sri Ravi Shankar is the guru of that organization. And he was, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was his guru and so on. So, but he's not a TM. He's not a transcendental meditation person. I've never learned TM. Whatever it is that the Art of Living does, I learned, but I can't say I'm a practitioner of that. I do meditate every day. I start my day that way when I wake up, but it's not a formal meditation process. It's not a practice that I've learned from anyone. It's just something that spontaneously showed up for me, kind of like everything I'm talking about. I mean, I haven't really learned any of this from anyone. It's just been, an inner exploration. And I find meditation is a really beautiful place for transition and presence. So for me, meditation opens, it's a great transition point into what I think of as transmission, or the manner in which divinity expresses through me, which I do with myself. So I come to deeper intimacy with divinity that way. But some of my students, some people in my community refer to what I do as meditation. They'll say that was a great meditation. And so, for me, meditation, if it's guided, is different than what's happening when I'm in transmission, because when I'm in transmission, it's not, the transmission isn't coming from me, to be clear, it's coming from the divine. But when I'm there, as I say, I'm aware of people or experiencing them on a much deeper level. But it's very difficult to go straight to that place for other people in particular. That's a very, very deep place. And so sometimes a meditation is a wonderful transition point. Anyway, I feel like I'm wandering around and answering your question.
No, you're not. No. And I mean, I think everybody has to find themselves, because like, especially when you're starting off, there's different ones on meditation, even getting into breath work and everything. But eventually you'll know, if you listen to your own body, you'll know what's working. And then you create your own version of it. It's not that, because like, even I've seen you with the thing and I liked it as well. Hey, you can put your hands up and just your feet on the ground, but you don't have to, and it's like not race related. It's not this, it's not that.
No,
and it's
no,
like,
no.
It's just like going, oh yeah, that's okay. And
Yeah.
because some people go, oh, my nose was itchy, I needed to just scratch. Just be.
Yeah. People will pretty consistently ask me, especially like an intro level class, can you offer more guidance about meditation? And my response is, my guidance to you is just be with whatever's showing up. You don't need to dismiss it. Now, you understand, I'm not coming from a tradition, so there might be people pulling their hair out to hear me say this, and I'm not trying to be offensive or contrary. I'm just saying what seems true for me. And what seems true for me is that divine presence is the thing we're opening to in meditation or transmission or whatever. And it's, you could also say, a deeper experience of the true self. And as we come to that encounter, as you say, there's all this other feedback that shows up in the body and so on. And it is so clear. There's no confusion at all about what resonates. And when we figure out what that is, whatever it is, there's something really important and meaningful there. And that's what I encourage people to pay attention to, rather than bring structure to it. Because I mean, structure has a value. I teach a structure and so on. But even as I'm teaching the structure, I'm telling people this structure is going to disappear. We're putting up a temporary scaffolding, and then we're going to kick this thing over in short order, because the point is not the structure. The point is the experience inside of who you are, of who everyone is, of what there is, that all there is. And once you start having that experience, that will take over, because that's who you really are. You're not the structure. The structure helps you get there. But then once you're there, let go of the structure. It's not important anymore.
So excellent. And I know you do retreats, so you might let me know what exactly you cover in them retreats.
Well, the retreats are sort of focused in two kind of core areas, which I think of as sort of the two components of my mission as I understand it right now. And one of them is a deeper experience of divine presence, just opening to the experience of the divine within. And of course, there's a many layers to that. There's the initial encounter, there's the initial opening, and then a deeper level of embodiment and integration. And this is all, I guess one way to think of it is vertical. It's all about descending within the body into the depth of presence within oneself. And then the second, and the name I use for that is spiritual mastery. It's just a placeholder name. And then the second name that I use is spiritual messenger mastery, which is really then the outflow of that presence now as it expresses with others and in the natural world, which you could think of as your unique gifts and your message and your mission and so on. But none of what I'm talking about, I mean, I do talk and I enjoy teaching and so on. But I mean, when this began, I had no words for any of it. It just was happening. And the words have been a function of downloads and awareness and noticing trends and patterns and so on. And it's wonderful to be able to teach that, because it offers the separate mind way to sort of hold on, some scaffolding, some handholds to grab onto and to connect to as we're stepping into the experience. But as important as I think those things are, they pale in comparison to the actual experience. So the bulk of the work that I do is actually in silence. It's deep inner work without much language at all. And all the focus of language, not in a way that is super conscious, but reflecting on it. It's almost like a way to open into the silence, if you understand what I'm saying. So, for example, I've been doing a virtual retreat every other week for the last 2.5 years on Zoom. And so, at a particular time, every other, whatever it is, Thursday, we gather and we sit and we're all together. And some people have their cameras on and some people have them off, whatever people are comfortable with. Some people aren't able to be there during the live thing, so they're watching the replay or they're listening to the replay. And I'll open space, and then there'll be a theme that has shown up, and it'll fall into one of these areas: deeper experience of divinity and integration, or some aspect of exploring one's gifts and so on. And I'll receive the theme maybe about a week ahead of time, and then it just sits there and downloads into me. And when I open the circle with the group, I'll start reflecting and sharing, but I've got my eyes closed. I'm not trying to regurgitate anything. I'm just following what's showing up, and sometimes it shows up for me visually, or sometimes I'm hearing myself say things, but it's the first time I'm aware of what's going to come out of my mouth is when I hear it. And that might go on for 30 or 45 minutes. And then we'll take a little break, and then we'll be in silent transmission for an hour to an hour and a half. And often, even during the reflecting, even the teaching period, people in the circle will drop out. They'll think they go to sleep. It's like they just can't stay, their mind can't stay consciously aware. It's not a problem from my standpoint. They're just doing very, very deep inner work. So the point isn't even the words. It's always with what's under the words. It's always the experience. And that experience is different for each person, right? So what's fascinating is in the third part of the retreat, we'll do a Q&A. People share, here's what happened for me. And almost inevitably in any one of these, we're on our 65th one next week of these every other week. Somebody will say, you remember when you said blah, blah, blah? And somebody else will at a later point will say, remember when you said da, da, da? And I'll think, I don't remember saying either one of those things. Each person is getting exactly what they need to get, in other words. So I'm not sure I'm answering the question, but and so when I do in-person retreats and we're together for multiple days, it follows the same kind of format. There's some reflecting, there's some inner work in silence. It's happening in a group context, but each person in the group is having their own experience. And then there's an opportunity to ask questions or reflect. And the point of that is just to explore some aspect of the mystery. We try to do that without story. We try to do it without getting into the particulars. It's more a thematic exploration, because I find that frees people to go deeper within themselves, and it becomes a universal conversation. So somebody might be asking a particular question, but when there's no story attached to it, the exploration becomes universal for everyone in the group, even though I appear to be having a conversation just with one person. So yeah, it's a deep exploring and experience of the divine mystery.
Excellent. And just finally, because I know you've written a book, I don't know, it's not released yet, but you might tell the name of it, when it's going to be out, and also kind of give us a breakdown on what you've covered in it.
Yeah. So the name of the book, or at least the working title, is Resonance, the Path of Spiritual Mastery. And I wish I could say when it's going to be published. I hope it's published soon. I'm in a rewrite right now, which is very much happening in consciousness. And so it doesn't really look like a rewrite from a conventional kind of author writer perspective, in the sense that I'm not sitting there trying to rethink things or articulate them differently. I actually am reading the book out loud. And when my hands and feet stop buzzing, I know there's some work to do. And then I just go inside and do that work in silence. And maybe that work goes on for weeks or months. And then my hands and feet will start buzzing again. And maybe I have a new word, and so I'll change the word, but maybe it's just something that went on in consciousness within me. And I would like to think that that process will be done in the next 3 to 6 months, and then it'll be published shortly after that. So maybe sometime mid to late 2023 or early 2024. I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned. You can always come to my website and put your name and email in and address it and say, tell me when the book's out. But in terms of what's in the book, I think of the book as the bedrock beneath the foundation. And if the foundation are the practices, and there are 6 spiritual practices that I've been given or received through download, or, however you want to say, then these practices are sort of built on this deeper bedrock understanding. And it's almost come in reverse. So, I started on a book in 2012, and I kept thinking, oh, there'll be questions about this, so I better put that in the intro. And the intro got longer and longer and longer until I realized, well, there's an entirely different book here in the intro. And the way I work is that I teach what is coming in long before I ever write about it. And so I'm exploring it with people, and we're having a live experience with it. And so I've actually taught this book, if you will, 3 times, 4 times. I've actually taught the book several times as a manuscript, but even before that, I taught it 3 times. And so it turns out these concepts are just, from my experience with my community and my students, they're like these essential level understandings of spirituality that are not particular to a tradition. In other words, they're not disruptive to beliefs or traditions, or at least not for the most part. So, for example, the first chapter is just about spiritual mastery. What is spiritual mastery? What is the transition from personal mastery? I can manifest, I can create, I can optimize my life, to now this is a spiritual unfolding. And how does that work? The second chapter is about the illusion of separation. And my perception is the illusion of separation is God's greatest gift to us, which is a record scratch for a lot of people, because most people think of the illusion of separation as the source of all suffering and pain that we encounter as human beings. I think that's a fair assessment. And I also think it's God's greatest gift to us. I think it is the pathway to our own integration. I think it's how we discover the divine. It's certainly how we integrate. And so there's a chapter on that. There's a chapter on the stages of consciousness, the developmental progression between what I perceive as these sort of 4 primary consciousnesses that are available to us as human beings. And on the control myth, about how we have this idea that we're controlling, what is unfolding in our lives. And a chapter on healing. And as we talked about early in our time together, maybe a little bit of a shift in perspective about that. And there's a chapter on soul embodiment and breaking the trauma cycle. We're all sort of focused or caught in trauma cycles, whether we realize it consciously or not. And so I've discovered there's a way of breaking the trauma cycle. It's a very natural process. It can be really profound. There's a chapter on that. There's a chapter on the intuitive guidance system. Most people have a sense they're intuitively aware, but aren't sure how to open to that. And I've discovered there's a way to do that. I don't want to say systematically, because that sounds like, ABC, but it's more, if you do it in this way and become more present, you'll discover there's this compass and your entire body's in on it. It's not just about seeing things or knowing things. And then I guess the last sort of part of the book is an exploration of living in the mirror, how we go out into the world and engage with this illusory dynamic that we begin realizing is an illusion. And then how that mirror eventually just melts away and isn't a mirror anymore as we become more and more integrated. So it's a book full of really easy concepts. It's not at all chewy. It's my editor tells people, this is a big read. This is a chewy book. So yeah, I love exploring these ideas with people. I love sharing them with people. And the thing I love most is when people begin to have experiences for themselves. And so a huge part of the book is, yes, there's the book, but at the end of each chapter, there are exercises, audio downloads, where I'm facilitating a transmission that goes with the chapter. So you read about it and then you experience it. And then you read about it and then you experience it.
Yeah. Excellent. No, definitely interested in that one myself. So it sounds brilliant.
Beautiful.
So, yes, I wish you super success with it. And I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So you might let people know how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, Roy, I'm enjoying our conversation as well, and so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and your community. My website's a great way to do that. It's kenwstone.com. And there are, I have a free class there. It's a 17-week program called Exploring Divine Resonance. And it's me teaching, facilitating transmission, answering questions. It's an online self-study. It's totally free. So if it resonates with anyone who's listening, I really encourage you to come put your name and email address in there, and you'll get a login to my online learning platform. And I'm live answering questions. I don't mean hosting like a Zoom, but I'm interacting with people on the page. You can ask questions or share reflections, and I will personally respond to you, as I am to other people that are taking the class right now. And that's a wonderful way to sort of dip your toe in and get a sense of, a deeper understanding of the kinds of things that I'm teaching. But maybe even more importantly than anything that I would teach, it's the transmission, it's the experience. And that 17-week class has 17 individual transmissions that will really, I think, offer people a deep experience of the kinds of things that I'm reflecting and sharing about, and open to an experience of the divine mystery for themselves. And I'd love to share that with anyone who's interested.
Excellent. And also they can actually find a link on that as well to register for the book when it comes out, because I'm sure if I'm as interested, so are they. So yeah. So thank you very much. And make sure the link will be both the audio and the video.
Beautiful. Thanks, Roy.
No problem. So that's all for the meditation podcast. As mentioned, we're on meditationpodcast.org, on BitChute and YouTube, and everything about me is on bio.link/podcaster. Sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating. Until next week, take care.